Rain drummed against the hospital windows as Li Wei pressed her palm against the cold glass. 3 months. That was all the doctor had given her mother. 3 months to gather memories that would have to last a lifetime. Behind her, machines beeped steadily, monitoring vitals that grew weaker with each passing day. Wei Wei. Her mother's voice was barely a whisper. Come here, child. Li Wei turned, forcing brightness into her expression. At 26, she had become an expert at hiding despair. I'm here, Mama. Do you need something? Water? Should I call the nurse? Her mother's frail hand reached out, and Li Wei took it gently. The once strong fingers that had braided her hair and wiped her tears now felt like bird bones wrapped in parchment. Stop pretending you're not breaking, my darling. I can see it in your eyes. Tears betrayed Li Wei's careful composure. I can't lose you. Not yet. Not when there's still so much I need to tell you, so much we haven't done. Listen to me carefully. Her mother's grip tightened with surprising strength. There's something I never told you about your father. Li Wei's breath caught. Her father had died when she was 3, a car accident that her mother rarely spoke about. Mama, you don't have to. I do. You need to understand. Her mother's eyes grew distant, remembering. Your father wasn't just any man. He came from one of the wealthiest families in Seoul. Kang family. They own half the city's real estate and technology companies. The revelation struck Li Wei like thunder. What? But we've been struggling all these years. Why didn't you ever? Because they wanted nothing to do with us. Bitterness crept into her mother's weak voice. When I got pregnant with you, they called me a gold digger. Said I was trying to trap their precious heir. Your father chose us over them, and they disowned him. After he died, I was too proud to crawl back to them begging. Li Wei's mind reeled. A wealthy family. Grandparents who didn't know she existed. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm dying and my pride means nothing anymore. Your pride means even less. Her mother coughed, and Li Wei quickly helped her sip water. Promise me something, Wei Wei. Promise me you'll find them. Let them know you exist. You shouldn't be alone in this world. I won't be alone. I have you. For 3 months. Her mother's voice cracked. 3 months, and then what? You work 3 jobs just to afford this hospital room. Your art degree collects dust while you serve coffee and clean offices. This isn't the life I wanted for you. It's enough if I have you. It's not enough for me. Her mother's eyes blazed with the last remnants of her fighting spirit. Promise me, Li Wei. Promise me you'll find the Kang family. Tell them who you are. You're their blood, whether they wanted to acknowledge it or not. Through her tears, Li Wei nodded. I promise, Mama. I promise. 3 weeks later, Li Wei stood at her mother's grave, the promise weighing heavier than the rain-soaked earth. She had researched the Kang family obsessively in those final days. Kang Industries, one of the largest conglomerates in South Korea. Her grandfather, Kang Jin-ho, was known as the Iron Dragon of Seoul, a businessman whose reputation for ruthlessness was legendary. Her uncle, Kang Min-jae, ran the day-to-day operations. And then there was her cousin, Kang Hyun-woo, the family's golden boy, heir apparent to the entire empire. Looking at their photos online felt surreal. These people shared her blood, her DNA. Yet they were strangers who lived in a world of private jets and charity galas while she counted coins for bus fare. The lawyer her mother had contacted in her final days sat across from Li Wei in the small cafe near the hospital. Mr. Park was an elderly man with kind eyes and a manila folder that felt like it contained a bomb. Your mother asked me to help you make contact with the Kang family, he said gently. She left instructions. I don't want their money, Li Wei said quickly. I just want to honor my mother's wish that they know I exist. I understand. However, I must warn you. The Kang family is notoriously difficult. They've built walls around themselves that most people can't penetrate. He slid a business card across the table. This is the direct line to Kang Hyun-woo's executive assistant. Your mother asked me to arrange a DNA test first, to provide proof of your identity. They won't simply take your word for it. Li Wei stared at the card. This was real. This was happening. When? Whenever you're ready. But Miss Li, I want you to understand something. These people destroyed your parents' happiness once. They may try to do the same to you. Money and power don't always make people kind. I know. Li Wei pocketed the card. But I promised my mother. And I always keep my promises. The DNA test took 3 weeks to process. 3 weeks during which Li Wei continued her exhausting routine of serving lattes at dawn, teaching art classes to disinterested teenagers in the afternoon, and cleaning office buildings until midnight. She fell into bed each night too tired to dream, which was a mercy. Dreams meant remembering her mother's last smile, her last words, her last breath. When the results came, they arrived via courier at her tiny apartment in Myeongdong. A thick envelope with the Kang Industries logo embossed in gold. Li Wei's hands shook as she opened it. The DNA match was 99.9% certain. She was, without any doubt, Kang Li Wei, granddaughter of Kang Hyun-woo, niece of Kang Min-jae, cousin of Kang Hyun-woo. The letter accompanying the results was typed on expensive stationery and signed by someone named Secretary Kim. It informed her that the family acknowledged the test results and requested her presence at Kang Manor for a formal meeting. Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. No negotiation on the time. No room for discussion. Li Wei read the letter 3 times, searching for warmth and finding only cold formality. They acknowledged her existence the way one might acknowledge a package delivery. Necessary but inconvenient. She almost didn't go. But she had promised her mother, and so the next afternoon found her standing outside the gates of Kang Manor, staring up at what could only be described as a palace. The estate sprawled across what must have been acres of pristine gardens and traditional architecture mixed with modern glass structures. Wealth didn't just live here. It had built monuments to itself. The security guard at the gate checked her identification 3 times before finally calling up to the main house. Miss Kang is here for her appointment. Miss Kang. The title felt foreign on her skin, like wearing someone else's clothes. A sleek black car appeared to drive her up the long driveway. She'd expected to feel intimidated, and she was, but underneath the intimidation burned something else. Anger. Her parents had been cast out of this paradise for the crime of loving each other. Her mother had died in a hospital room that cost more than she earned in a month, while these people lived in castles. The main house was even more impressive up close. A butler, actually a real butler in a formal suit, opened the car door and led her through marble halls decorated with art that probably cost more than her entire neighborhood. They passed rooms that seemed to serve no purpose other than to display wealth. Libraries with ladders to reach books no one read. Drawing rooms with furniture too precious to sit on. Galleries of family portraits where generations of Kangs stared down with expressions of supreme confidence. None of the portraits showed her father. The family is waiting in the blue salon, the butler announced, opening double doors that revealed a room dominated by a massive table and the 3 people seated at its head. Kang Hyun-woo sat in the center, and Li Wei immediately understood why they called him the Iron Dragon. Even at 70, he radiated power and control. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit impeccable, and his eyes sharp as surgical scalpels as they dissected her appearance. To his right sat Kang Min-jae, her uncle, who bore a strong resemblance to photos she'd seen of her father, though his expression held none of the warmth her mother had described. And to Hyun-woo's left sat a young man who could only be Kang Hyun-woo, her cousin. Hyun-woo was staring at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He was younger than she'd expected, perhaps 27 or 28, with a kind of face that probably stopped traffic. Sharp jawline, intense dark eyes, expensive haircut that looked effortlessly casual. He wore his suit like armor, and his expression gave away nothing. "Sit," Jin-ho commanded, and it was very much a command, not an invitation. Li Wei sat in the chair across from them, feeling like she was facing a tribunal. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. They sat together unified. She sat alone. "So you're the daughter," Jin-ho said, making it sound like an accusation. "You look like your father. Same weak jaw. Same foolish eyes." The insult stung, but Li Wei kept her expression neutral. "I look like my mother. Everyone said so." "Your mother?" Min-jae spoke for the first time, his voice dripping with disdain. "The woman who trapped my brother with a pregnancy and then drained him dry financially. Is that the mother you mean?" "My mother," Li Wei said with forced calm, "was the woman my father loved enough to give up everything for. She supported him when he wanted to be an artist instead of a businessman. She held him when he died. And she spent the rest of her life working herself to death to raise me alone because this family abandoned us." "We abandoned nothing," Jin-ho snapped. "Your father abandoned his responsibilities, his duty to this family, his future. All for some bar girl who got pregnant deliberately." "She was a teacher," Li Wei shot back, her composure cracking. "A piano teacher who happened to meet my father at a charity concert. They fell in love. That's not a crime. In this family, it is when that love destroys your potential." Jin-ho's voice could have frozen fire. "Your father was brilliant. He could have led this company into the next generation. Instead, he chose poverty and early death with a woman who wasn't worth his little finger." Li Wei stood abruptly. "I came here because my mother asked me to let you know I existed. I've done that. We're finished. Sit down." Hyun-woo spoke for the first time, and his voice was different from the others. Quieter but somehow more compelling. "Please." The please surprised her enough that she hesitated. "We're not finished," Hyun-woo continued, still watching her with that unreadable expression. "You've confirmed your identity through DNA testing. That makes you a member of this family, whether any of us like it or not. There are legal implications, financial implications. You can't simply walk away now." "Watch me," Li Wei said. "There's a trust," Jin-ho said flatly. "Your father's trust. Upon confirmation of any heirs, it transfers to them. It's worth approximately $5 million. The amount hit Li Wei like a physical blow. $5 million. She could barely conceive of that much money. Her mother had died worried about hospital bills that amounted to a fraction of that sum. "I don't want it," she heard herself say, even as a voice in her head screamed that she was insane. "What you want is irrelevant," Jin-ho said. "The trust exists. It's yours. However, there are conditions." Of course there were conditions. People like this didn't hand over $5 million without strings attached. "You will move into Kong Manor," Jin-ho continued. "You will be educated in the ways of this family. How to dress, how to speak, how to conduct yourself in society. You will learn the business. And if you prove yourself worthy, you will take your place as a legitimate member of the Kong family. And if I refuse, then you remain Kong Jin-ho's unknown, unacknowledged bastard grandchild. The trust will be held in escrow until you're 40. And we never speak again." Jin-ho's smile was cold. "Your choice, Miss Lee. $5 million and a family, or poverty and pride." Li Wei looked at each of them in turn. Jin-ho with his calculated cruelty, Min-jae with his barely concealed contempt, and Hyun-woo, who was still watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. She thought of her mother, dying in that hospital room, asking her to connect with this family. Not for the money, for the connection, for the belonging. Because her mother hadn't wanted her to be alone. "I'll do it," Li Wei said quietly. "But not for you. For my mother. Because she asked me to. Your reasons don't concern me, Jin-ho said. Secretary Kim will arrange your move. You'll start tomorrow. We'll begin with lessons in proper behavior. You dress like a street vendor. I am a street vendor, Li Wei said. Among other things. I work 3 jobs because unlike some people, I wasn't born with everything handed to me. That ends now, Jin-ho said. You're a Kong. We don't serve coffee. We own the coffee shops. The arrogance of that statement should have angered her, but instead, Li Wei felt something else entirely. A strange kind of grief for her father, who had grown up with this casual superiority and somehow still chose love over luxury. I'll need to give notice at my jobs, she said. Already done, Hyun-woo said. I took the liberty of contacting your employers this morning. They've been compensated for the inconvenience. You had no right. I had every right. Your family now. We protect family interests. His eyes met hers. Even when family doesn't want protecting. There was something in his gaze that made Li Wei's pulse quicken, and she didn't like it. Didn't like the way he seemed to see through her defenses. Didn't like the way her body responded to his attention. The blue room has been prepared for you, Min-jae said, standing. The staff will help you settle in. We dine at 7. Formal attire required. I assume you don't own any. I'll manage, Li Wei said through gritted teeth. See that you do, Jin-ho said dismissively. Meeting adjourned. They left her sitting there, alone in that vast room, feeling like she'd just signed her soul away. A moment later, Hyun-woo appeared in the doorway. That went better than I expected, he said. Better. They insulted my mother, my father, and me in under 10 minutes. Yes, but you're still here. Most people run screaming after 5 minutes with grandfather. He moved closer, and Li Wei noticed details she'd missed before. The tiny scar above his left eyebrow. The way his expensive watch sat loose on his wrist, like he'd lost weight recently. The shadows under his eyes that suggested he didn't sleep well. I'm Hyun-woo. I know who you are. Do you? His smile was slight, enigmatic. I wonder. You know what the internet says about me. What the business magazines report. But do you know who I actually am? Does it matter? It might. We're going to be living under the same roof. It would be easier if we weren't enemies. I'm not your enemy, Li Wei said carefully. I'm just a stranger with shared DNA. For now. Hyun-woo studied her for a long moment. Can I give you some advice, Li Wei? May I call you Li Wei? You just did. His smile widened slightly. Fair point. My advice is this. Don't try to fight them head-on. Grandfather and uncle respond to confrontation with overwhelming force. You'll lose every time. Then what do you suggest? That I become some meek little puppet? No. I suggest you be patient. Learn their weaknesses. And when you strike, make it count. He moved toward the door, then paused. The blue room is on the 3rd floor, east wing. If you get lost, which you will because this place is a maze, ask for Mrs. Han. She's the head housekeeper and the only person in this house who might actually be kind to you. Why are you helping me? Hyun-woo looked back at her, and for just a second, his mask slipped. She saw something in his eyes. Loneliness, maybe. Recognition of a fellow survivor. Because I know what it's like to be the outsider in this family. Welcome to Kong Manor, cousin. Try not to let it destroy you. He left, and Li Wei sat in the silence of the blue salon, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. The blue room turned out to be a suite larger than her entire former apartment. It had a bedroom with a 4-poster bed that looked like it belonged in a palace, a sitting room with furniture that probably cost more than a car, and a bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking the gardens, where cherry trees were just beginning to blossom. Mrs. Han, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and no-nonsense efficiency, helped Li Wei unpack her meager belongings. The housekeeper said nothing about the worn suitcase or the cheap clothes, simply hung everything in the massive closet where they looked even more pathetic against the empty space. Master Hyun-woo mentioned you'll need appropriate attire for dinner, Mrs. Han said. I took the liberty of having several dresses sent up. They should fit. I can't accept. You can and you will, Miss Li Wei. In this house, there are battles worth fighting and battles that are wastes of energy. This is the latter. Mrs. Han's tone brooked no argument. Now dinner is at 7 sharp. The family values punctuality. I'll send someone up at 6:30 to help you dress. I know how to dress myself. I'm sure you do, dear. But there are zippers in these gowns that require 2 people. Humor an old woman. After Mrs. Han left, Li Wei explored her new prison. Because that's what it felt like despite the luxury. A gilded cage where she was expected to transform from Li Wei the art teacher into someone worthy of the Kang name. She found her mother's sketchbook in her suitcase and held it like a talisman. Her mother had been talented, had dreamed of being a concert pianist before life, and poverty and single motherhood had stolen that dream. The sketches inside were of her father, dozens of them. Li Wei had never seen most of these drawings. Her mother had captured him laughing, sleeping, painting, always with such love in every line. I'm here, Mama, Li Wei whispered to the empty room. I'm keeping my promise. But I don't know if I can survive this. At 6:30, a young maid appeared to help her dress. The girl, who introduced herself as Ji Young, was close to Li Wei's age and refreshingly talkative as she laced Li Wei into a deep blue evening gown that must have cost thousands. The family doesn't usually take dinner together, Ji Young confided as she arranged Li Wei's hair. Master Hyun-woo is always working late. Master Min-jae usually dines at his club. But they're making an exception tonight for you. Lucky me, Li Wei said dryly. Oh, you're braver than you look. Most people are terrified of the chairman. He once made a business associate cry just by looking at him funny. Ji Young applied subtle makeup to Li Wei's face. But Master Hyun-woo, he's different. Everyone loves him. Well, everyone who works here. The family is harder on him than anyone. Why? Because he's perfect. Graduated top of his class at Harvard. Speaks 5 languages. Runs 3 divisions of the company. But it's never enough for them. They always want more. Ji Young stepped back to admire her work. You look beautiful, Mississippi. Like you belong here. But as Li Wei stared at her reflection in the mirror, she felt like a fraud. The elegant woman in the blue gown wasn't her. It was some costume she was wearing, a role she was playing. The dining room could have seated 30 people comfortably. Instead, 5 place settings were arranged at one end of the enormous table. Jin Ho at the head, Min Jae to his right, an empty chair to his left where presumably Hyun-woo would sit, and 2 chairs across from them. One for Li Wei, one empty. The empty chair was for your father, Jin Ho said without preamble as Li Wei sat down. We keep it as a reminder of the cost of foolish choices. Before Li Wei could respond, Hyun-woo entered. He'd changed from his suit into a different suit, this one even more expensive looking if that was possible. His eyes found Li Wei immediately, and something flickered in them. Surprise. Approval. It was gone too quickly to identify. You're late, Jin Ho said. Conference call ran long. Apologies. Hyun-woo took his seat, and a team of servers appeared with the first course. The Singapore deal is closing ahead of schedule. As it should. You're 3 weeks behind my original timeline. Because your original timeline was impossible, Hyun-woo said calmly. But we made it work. Dinner proceeded with painful formality. Jin Ho held court, discussing business matters that went over Li Wei's head. Min Jae added occasional commentary, always negative. Hyun-woo responded to everything with the same calm patience, never rising to the bait when his grandfather criticized him, never defending himself when Min-jae implied his successes were luck. Li Wei ate in silence, watching the dynamics play out. This was a family in the technical sense only. There was no warmth here, no affection, just power plays and subtle cruelties dressed up in expensive suits and fine china. "You're quiet," Jin-ho said suddenly, fixing his attention on Li Wei. "Overcome by the grandeur? Or simply acknowledging your place?" "Neither. I'm listening and learning," Li Wei replied. "Isn't that what you wanted? What I want is for you to contribute to the conversation. You have a business degree, correct? I have an art degree." The silence that followed was deafening. "An art degree," Min-jae repeated, as if she'd said she had a degree in underwater basket weaving. "What exactly does one do with an art degree besides starve?" "One creates beauty," Li Wei said, keeping her voice level despite her rising anger. "One teaches others to see the world differently. One makes things that last longer than quarterly profit reports." "Art doesn't pay bills," Jin-ho said flatly. "Neither does sitting in a mansion inherited from ancestors who actually worked for their money," Li Wei shot back. The table went absolutely silent. Even the servers froze in place. Li Wei realized she'd just insulted the Iron Dragon of Seoul to his face, and that was probably the equivalent of signing her own death warrant. Then Hyun-woo laughed. It was a genuine laugh, not the polite chuckle of dinner party courtesy. It transformed his face, made him look younger and infinitely more approachable. "She has a point, grandfather. The original fortune came from your great-grandfather's shipping business. You inherited an empire and expanded it. She's a first-generation college graduate who put herself through school while caring for a dying mother. Arguably, she's worked harder than any of us. You find insolence amusing." Jin-ho's voice could have cut glass. "I find honesty refreshing." Hyun-woo's smile faded, but his eyes remained warm as they met Li Wei's. "This family could use more of it. This family could use members who understand loyalty and respect," Min-jae said coldly. "Perhaps it was a mistake to bring her here." "Perhaps," Jin-ho agreed, still staring at Li Wei. "But the mistake has been made. The question is whether she's capable of learning from it. Tell me, Miss Li, do you plan to continue insulting the man who controls your future?" Li Wei met his gaze steadily. "I plan to tell the truth, even when it's inconvenient. My mother raised me that way. She said integrity was the only thing poverty couldn't take from us. Your mother filled your head with nonsense. My mother filled my head with values. There's a difference." Jin-ho's expression was unreadable. Then abruptly he stood. "I've lost my appetite. Min-jae, join me in my study. We have business to discuss. Hyun-woo, educate your cousin on the consequences of an insolent tongue." They left, taking the warm air with them. The dining room felt cavernous and cold in their absence. Servers began clearing plates with practiced efficiency, and Li Wei realized her hands were shaking. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," Hyun-woo said once they were alone. "I'm not sure which." "Probably both," Li Wei admitted. "I should apologize, shouldn't I? For telling the truth." "Never. But you should be more strategic about how you deliver it." He stood and offered his hand. "Come on. Let me show you something." Li Wei hesitated, then took his hand. His grip was warm and firm, and he led her through the maze of the house to a set of doors she hadn't noticed before. They opened into a conservatory, a glass room filled with instruments. A grand piano dominated the space, surrounded by cellos, violins, and other stringed instruments. "Your father's sanctuary," Hyun-woo said quietly. "No one's used this room since he died. Grandfather ordered it sealed. But I have the key." Li Wei moved to the piano as if in a trance. She lifted the cover, and the keys gleamed in the moonlight streaming through the glass ceiling. My father played brilliantly, from what I understand. He was supposed to be a concert pianist, but grandfather forbade it. Said music was a hobby, not a career. Hyun-woo leaned against a pillar, watching her. Your mother played too, didn't she? She taught piano. That's how they met. Play something for me. I'm not very good. I don't care about good. Care about honest. You seem capable of that. Li Wei sat at the bench and placed her fingers on the keys. She played a simple melody her mother had taught her. Nothing complex. Just a gentle song about cherry blossoms and spring. As she played, she felt her mother's presence, felt her father's presence, felt the weight of the day finally lift from her shoulders. When she finished, she found Hyun-woo standing beside the piano. His expression softer than she'd seen it. Your mother taught you well, he said. She taught me everything important. How to find beauty in small things. How to stand up for yourself. How to love without expecting anything in return. Li Wei closed the piano cover carefully. What did your family teach you? How to make money. How to win negotiations. How to present a perfect image to the world. His smile was sad. Nothing important, in other words. Then why do you stay? Because it's all I know. Because leaving would mean admitting defeat. Because somewhere deep down, I keep hoping they'll see me as more than just the next generation of Kang prophets. He shook his head. Pathetic, isn't it? No. It's human. We all want to be seen by our families. Is that why you came? To be seen? Li Wei considered the question. I came because my mother asked me to. But now that I'm here, yes. I want them to see that she wasn't some gold digger. That my father didn't waste his life. That I'm worth more than the trust fund I inherited by accident of birth. You are, Hyun-woo said simply. Worth more, I mean. You just need to make them see it. How? By being undeniably excellent. By mastering their world and showing them you belong here. By making them regret every doubt they ever had. He moved toward the door. I can help you if you'll let me. Why would you help me? Hyun-woo paused in the doorway. His expression inscrutable in the shadows. Because you remind me of who I used to be, before this family ground all the fight out of me. And because I think you might actually have a chance of changing things here. Someone should. He left her alone in her father's sanctuary, and Li Wei sat there for a long time, her fingers trailing over the piano keys, trying to imagine what her life might have been if her father had lived. If her parents had stayed together. If the Kang family had accepted them. But dwelling on might-have-beens was pointless. She was here now, in this strange new world, and she had to find a way to navigate it without losing herself completely. The next morning began with a wake-up call at 6 a.m. Li Wei, who was used to early mornings from her coffee shop days, was nonetheless disoriented by the sheer luxury of her surroundings. For a moment she forgot where she was, then reality crashed back in. Mrs. Han arrived with breakfast on a tray and a schedule that made Li Wei's old three-job routine look relaxing. Etiquette lessons at 7. Language tutorial at 9. Business fundamentals at 11. Lunch at 1. History of Kang Industries at 2. Social media and public relations training at 4. Dinner preparation at 6. I'm not a performing seal, Li Wei protested. No, you're a Kang. This is merely what's expected. Mrs. Han set the tray down with finality. Eat. You'll need your strength. The etiquette instructor was a severe woman named Madame Park, who looked at Li Wei like she was a particularly disappointing science experiment. For 3 hours, she corrected Li Wei's posture, her walk, her way of holding chopsticks, her handshake, her bow, and approximately 17 other things Li Wei had been doing wrong her entire life. You move like a peasant, Madame Park declared. Heavy-footed. Graceless. We must rebuild you from the ground up. I grew up poor, not graceless, Li Wei muttered. There is no difference in society's eyes. You will learn to glide, not stomp. To gesture, not flail. To speak softly rather than project like you're selling vegetables in a market. By the time 9 o'clock rolled around, Li Wei was ready to throw Madame Park's perfect posture out the nearest window. The language tutor, however, was a pleasant surprise. Professor Kim was a jovial man in his 60s who seemed genuinely interested in teaching rather than criticizing. You speak Korean beautifully, he said after hearing her talk. But business Korean is different from conversational Korean. And your English is excellent, but we'll work on the specific vocabulary of international finance. I'm not sure I want to be in international finance. Perhaps not. But you need to understand it to survive in this family. Professor Kim's smile was sympathetic. Play their game, Miss Li Wei. At least until you understand the rules well enough to change them. The business fundamentals class was taught by none other than Hyun-woo, a fact that surprised Li Wei when she entered the small conference room and found him waiting with a laptop and an expectant expression. I thought you'd be running a division or conquering a country or whatever it is you do, Li Wei said. Multitasking. I can educate you and review quarterly reports simultaneously. He gestured to the chair beside him, not across from him, and Li Wei noted the subtle message. Peer, not subordinate. We'll start with basics. How much do you know about corporate structure? Nothing. I know art history, color theory, and how to make a perfect cappuccino. All useful skills in their own way. But if you're going to understand this family, you need to understand the business. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. For the next 2 hours, Hyun-woo walked her through the basics of Kang Industries. The various divisions, the international holdings, the complicated web of subsidiaries and partnerships. He explained it clearly, without condescension, occasionally throwing in real-world examples that made the dry material come alive. Li Wei found herself actually interested despite her initial resistance. There was a certain artistry to business, she realized. The way a good deal was structured was like composing music. The strategy of market positioning was like painting, knowing where to place colors for maximum impact. You're a natural, Hyun-woo said as she correctly identified a potential problem in a proposed merger. Your degree might say art, but you think like a strategist. My mother always said art and logic weren't opposites. The best art requires both. Smart woman, your mother. The smartest. She could have been amazing if she'd had opportunities. What was her name? Your mother. Li Wei realized no one in the family had asked. Li Mei. She was named after a famous poet. And she gave you her surname. My father wanted me to be a Kang. She refused. Said I'd earn any name I carried, not have it handed to me. Li Wei smiled at the memory. She was stubborn that way. Stubbornness seems to run in the family. On both sides. Hyun-woo closed his laptop. That's enough for today. You've absorbed more in 2 hours than most business school students learn in a semester. Flattery. Observation. There's a difference. He stood, then hesitated. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Fair enough. Why did you really come here? Your mother's dying wish is a reason, but I don't think it's the only one. Li Wei considered lying, then remembered what she'd said about integrity. Because I'm tired of being invisible. My whole life I've been the poor girl, the scholarship student, the part-time worker no one notices. Here I'm somebody. Even if that somebody is the granddaughter they wish didn't exist. It's still more than I was before. You were never invisible, Hyun-woo said quietly. You just needed people who knew how to see you. The comment caught Li Wei off guard, created an unexpected flutter in her chest that she firmly ignored. Hyun-woo was being kind, nothing more. He pitied her probably. Or saw her as a project, a way to rebel against his grandfather's rigidity. She couldn't afford to read anything deeper into his attention. This family had already broken her parents' hearts. She wouldn't let them break hers too. The afternoon classes blurred together into an exhausting parade of information. The history of Kang Industries was taught by an elderly executive who had worked for Jin-ho for 40 years. He painted a picture of the family empire that was equal parts admiration and warning. Every triumph had required sacrifice. Every expansion had demanded ruthlessness. The Kang family didn't succeed by being nice. They succeeded by being inevitable. The social media training was conducted by a young woman named Yuki who worked in the company's PR department. She went through Li Wei's complete lack of online presence with something between horror and fascination. "You're like a ghost," Yuki said, scrolling through search results that showed absolutely nothing. No social media profiles, no photos, no digital footprint. It's actually impressive in this day and age. I worked 3 jobs and took care of my dying mother. I didn't have time for selfies. Yuki's expression softened. "Sorry. That was insensitive. But now that you're a public figure, we need to craft your image carefully. The media will discover you soon, if they haven't already. We need to control the narrative before they do." "What narrative?" "The lost heiress, obviously. Poor but honest girl discovers wealthy family. It's every drama viewer's fantasy. We can use that." Yuki pulled up a mock Instagram page. "We'll show you as poised, educated, elegant, attending charity events, supporting the arts, maybe visiting your old neighborhood occasionally to show you haven't forgotten your roots." That sounds incredibly fake. It is incredibly fake. That's what public relations means. We craft the truth into something palatable. Yuki's smile was almost apologetic. "Welcome to the world of the wealthy, Li Wei. Nothing here is quite real." By dinner time, Li Wei's head was spinning with information and her body ached from Madame Park's posture corrections. She changed into another borrowed gown, this one a deep emerald that made her skin glow, and made her way to the dining room. Tonight, only Hyun-woo and Jin-ho were present. Min-jae had business in Singapore apparently. The 3 of them sat at that enormous table, and the empty chairs seemed to echo with ghosts. "I received a report on your progress today," Jin-ho said without preamble. "Madame Park says you're teachable but resistant. Professor Kim says you're intelligent but unfocused. Master Kang says you're a natural businesswoman who needs polish." "Master Kang is generous," Li Wei said, glancing at Hyun-woo. "Master Kang is rarely wrong," Jin-ho replied. "Very well. You've survived your first day. Tomorrow will be harder. We're having a family gathering. Extended family. Cousins, aunts, uncles, various hangers-on who want to see the latest scandal up close." Li Wei's stomach dropped. "You're putting me on display. I'm introducing you formally to the family. There's a difference. You'll wear appropriate clothing. Mrs. Han has selected options. You'll be polite. You'll be demure. You'll remember that you represent this family now, and any embarrassment reflects on all of us. What if they ask about my mother? You'll say nothing negative. Your mother is dead. Speaking ill of her accomplishes nothing. Speaking ill of her was your specialty," Li Wei said before she could stop herself. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Hyun-woo's eyes widened slightly, a warning. But Li Wei was done swallowing insults about the woman who'd sacrificed everything for her. "My mother was brilliant and kind and strong," she continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "She taught me that dignity wasn't about money or status. It was about how you treat people who can't benefit you. By that measure, she had more dignity than anyone in this house." Jin-ho's face was stone. "Are you finished?" "No. But I will be, if you keep insulting her memory. I came here for her sake. To honor her last wish. But I won't sit here and let you rewrite history. She loved my father. He loved her. They chose each other, and maybe that was foolish by your standards, but it was real. More real than whatever this is. She gestured at the formal dinner, the silent servants, the cold elegance. This, Jin-ho said softly, dangerously, is survival. Your parents' love didn't pay bills. It didn't cure your mother's illness. It didn't prevent your father's death. Real love requires more than pretty feelings. It requires sacrifice and strength and sometimes, yes, compromise. They compromised everything for each other. And died young as a result. Is that the example you wish to follow? Li Wei had no answer for that. 'Cause he was right in his own cold way. Her parents' love had been beautiful and pure and ultimately tragic. They'd had each other, but they'd also struggled and suffered and died too soon. I thought not, Jin-ho said. Romantic notions are pretty in songs and stories. In reality, they're disasters waiting to happen. You'll learn that, or you'll learn nothing. He left without touching his food, and once again, Li Wei was alone with Hyun-woo. You have to stop doing that, Hyun-woo said, but there was something like admiration in his voice. Doing what? Telling the truth. Poking the dragon. Grandfather's not used to being challenged. Most people are too afraid. Should I be afraid? Probably. But I don't think fear motivates you. Hyun-woo moved to the chair beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. What motivates you, Li Wei? I don't know anymore. Justice, maybe. Proving something. Honoring my mother's memory. She looked at him. What motivates you? Honestly, I'm not sure. For so long it's been about meeting their expectations. Being perfect enough. But perfect is a moving target in this family. I could cure cancer and grandfather would ask why I hadn't also solved world hunger. Then why stay? You're wealthy. Educated. You could do anything. Could I? Or am I just another prisoner in a gilded cage? His smile was self-deprecating. Sometimes I think you're braver than all of us. You could have walked away from that first meeting. Refused the trust, rejected the family. Gone back to your 3 jobs and your tiny apartment. But you didn't. I promised my mother. And you keep your promises. Even when they cost you. He stood abruptly. Come on. I want to show you something else. Another room full of expensive instruments no one plays. Better. The roof. He led her through the house, up flights of stairs Li Wei hadn't known existed, finally pushing open a door that let out onto a flat rooftop garden. The view of Seoul was breathtaking, millions of lights spreading out like stars. I come here when the house feels too small, Hyun-woo said, moving to the edge where a low wall provided safety. Up here I can breathe. Li Wei joined him, and they stood in silence, watching the city. Do you ever think about leaving? She asked quietly. Just walking away from all of this. Every day. And then I wake up and put on my suit and do exactly what's expected of me. He glanced at her. You make me want to be braver. Me. I'm terrified every second I'm here. But you do it anyway. That's what bravery is. Not the absence of fear. The presence of action despite it. There was something in his voice, a vulnerability she hadn't heard before. Li Wei realized they were standing very close, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough that when the wind picked up, his suit jacket brushed against her arm. Tomorrow's going to be hard, he said. The extended family isn't kind. They'll judge you, dissect you, compare you to every standard you'll never meet. But I'll be there. And I won't let them destroy you. Why do you care? Because someone should. Because you deserve better than what this family typically offers. Because when I look at you, I see everything I was supposed to be. Honest, brave, willing to fight for what matters. His voice was barely above a whisper. And I realize how far I've fallen from that ideal. Li Wei's heart was doing complicated things in her chest, sending warning signals that she deliberately ignored. You're not as fallen as you think. You've been kind to me. Patient. You didn't have to be. Maybe I needed to be. For myself as much as for you. They stood there as the city lights flickered below, two people trapped in the same gilded cage, finding unexpected comfort in shared imprisonment. Li Wei knew she should step back, create distance. Remember that Hyun-woo was her cousin, and any feelings beyond familial were dangerous and complicated. But standing there in the moonlight, with souls spread out before them and the weight of tomorrow's trials looming, she let herself have this moment of connection. Just this one moment before reality crashed back in. The next morning brought chaos. Preparations for the family gathering consumed the entire house. Florists arrived with arrangements that cost more than Li Wei used to earn in a month. Caterers transformed the dining room into a showcase of culinary artistry. Musicians set up in the conservatory, filling her father's sanctuary with preparation sounds. Mrs. Han appeared with 3 gowns for Li Wei's approval, each more elaborate than the last. Li Wei chose the simplest, a pale pink dress that managed to be elegant without being ostentatious. Ji Young spent 2 hours on her hair and makeup, transforming her into someone who looked like they belonged in this world. You look like a princess, Ji Young said with satisfaction. The family won't know what hit them. That's what I'm afraid of. By noon, guests began arriving. Li Wei watched from her bedroom window as expensive cars disgorged elegantly dressed people, all of them moving with the confidence of those who'd never questioned their place in the world. Her stomach churned with nerves. A knock on her door made her jump. Hyun-woo entered, looking impossibly handsome in a tailored navy suit, and his expression softened when he saw her. You look beautiful, he said simply. I look terrified. That too. But we'll hide it under elegant armor. He held out his arm. Ready? No. But I'll do it anyway. That's my brave girl. The endearment sent warmth through her, even as a voice in her head warned her not to get attached. Hyun-woo was being kind. It meant nothing more than familial support. The gathering was held in a massive reception hall Li Wei hadn't known existed. Easily 100 people filled the space, all dressed in their finest, all turning to stare as Li Wei entered on Hyun-woo's arm. The weight of their collective judgment was almost physical. Jin-ho stood on a raised platform, commanding attention without effort. When he saw Li Wei, he gestured her forward. Hyun-woo gave her arm a reassuring squeeze before she moved to join her grandfather. Family and friends, Jin-ho's voice carried across the room. Thank you for joining us today. We have an announcement that concerns the Kang legacy. As many of you have heard, recent DNA testing has confirmed the existence of my late son's daughter. She is Kang Li Wei, and she is now formally acknowledged as a member of this family. The murmuring that followed ranged from curious to hostile. Li Wei kept her expression neutral, her posture perfect thanks to Madame Park's torturous training. Miss Kang will be joining the family business in due course, Jin-ho continued. She has much to learn, but she carries Kang blood. That means something in this family. A woman in her 50s, dripping with jewelry, raised her voice. Does it? She's illegitimate, raised in poverty by a woman who trapped your son. What message does it send to acknowledge her now? The message, Jin-ho said with steel in his voice, is that I decide who is family and who is not. Anyone who questions my judgment can leave now. No one moved. The woman who'd spoken looked furious but said nothing more. Li Wei, Jin-ho said, say something appropriate. Li Wei moved forward, her heart pounding. She looked out at the sea of faces, some curious, some contemptuous, some merely indifferent. She thought of her mother, who'd faced worse than judgmental rich people. She thought of her father, who'd given up everything to love freely. Thank you for welcoming me, she said, her voice clear and steady. I know my presence here is unexpected and for some unwelcome. I don't expect to belong overnight. But I want you to know that I'm not here to take anything from anyone. I'm here to honor my mother's last wish and to learn about the father I barely knew. Whether you accept me or not, I'm grateful for the opportunity to try. It was diplomatic without being obsequious, honest without being confrontational. Exactly the right tone, apparently, because Jin Ho's expression showed the barest hint of approval. The gathering continued with painful small talk. Li Wei found herself passed from group to group like a curiosity, answering the same questions repeatedly. Where did she grow up? What did she study? How did her mother die? Each question felt like a small knife, cutting away at her composure. A young woman about her age approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm Kang Soo-jin, Hyun-woo's younger sister. We haven't officially met. Li Wei. Though I suppose you know that. Everyone knows that. You're all anyone's talking about. Soo-jin's tone was pleasant, but there was something calculating in her expression. It must be overwhelming, coming from nothing to all this. I didn't come from nothing. I came from love and hard work and values. That's not nothing. Of course not. I meant financially. This lifestyle must seem like a fairy tale. Fairy tales usually have better families, Li Wei said before she could stop herself. Soo-jin's smile became genuine for a moment. Fair point. Look, I'll be direct. I don't care that you're here. Grandfather's approval is all that matters, and he's acknowledged you. But be careful. Not everyone in this family is as accepting. Some people see you as a threat to their inheritance. I don't want their inheritance. Doesn't matter what you want. You exist. That's threat enough. Soo-jin's gaze drifted across the room to where Hyun-woo was talking with a group of executives. And be careful with my brother. What do you mean? I mean Hyun-woo has a savior complex. He likes to rescue things. Stray dogs, failing companies, lost causes. You might seem like his latest project, but projects have expiration dates. Soo-jin's warning wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. I like you, Li Wei. You've got more spine than most people. Grandfather intimidates. But this family destroys people. Don't let them destroy you. She walked away, leaving Li Wei more unsettled than before. Was that what Hyun-woo's kindness was? Project. A way to rebel against his grandfather by befriending the family outcast. As if summoned by her thoughts, Hyun-woo appeared at her elbow. You look like you need rescuing. Your sister just warned me that you have a rescue complex. Soo-jin talks too much. But his smile was rueful. She's not entirely wrong though. I do tend to adopt lost causes. Thanks. That's exactly what every girl wants to hear. I didn't mean it like that. You're not a lost cause. If anything, you're the most found person in this room. Everyone else is lost in ambition and greed and family politics. You know exactly who you are. Do I? 'Cause I'm not sure anymore. A week ago I was Li Wei, coffee shop girl with an art degree. Today I'm Kang Li Wei, heiress to a fortune, wearing a dress that costs more than a car. Which one is real? Both. Either. You get to decide. Hyun-woo took 2 glasses of champagne from a passing server and handed her one. To being found, in whatever way that means. They clinked glasses, and Li Wei let the bubbles distract her from the confusion swirling in her chest. Around them, the party continued, a carefully choreographed dance of power and prestige. She was part of it now, whether she wanted to be or not. The evening wore on with excruciating slowness. Li Wei smiled until her face hurt, answered questions until her voice was hoarse, and stood straight until her back ached. By the time the last guests departed, she felt wrung out and exhausted. Hyun-woo found her sitting at her father's piano in the conservatory. "You survived," he said. "Barely. Does it always feel like being on trial?" Family gatherings. You get used to it. Or you don't, and you start avoiding them like I do. He sat beside her on the piano bench, closer than strictly necessary. You impressed grandfather. That's not easy to do. I also annoyed half the family and probably made enemies I don't even know about. Welcome to being a Kang. We specialize in carefully managed hostility. His shoulder brushed hers, and Li Wei was acutely aware of his proximity. Play something. I'm not good enough to play for you. You keep saying that, but I don't believe it. Play something true. Something that matters. Li Wei's fingers found the keys, playing the melody her mother had loved. It was simple, almost childlike, but it carried the weight of memory and loss. As she played, she felt Hyun-woo's attention on her, felt the way the music changed the air between them. When she finished, silence fell. Then Hyun-woo said quietly, "Your mother taught you more than music. She taught you how to feel. That's rare in this family. What did your family teach you to feel? Ambition, pride, anger sometimes. But not this." He gestured vaguely at the piano, at the lingering notes. Not beauty for its own sake. It's not too late to learn. Isn't it? I'm 29. I've spent my entire life being groomed to take over an empire. There's no room for beauty in quarterly reports. There should be. Everything should have beauty, even if it's just a well-organized spreadsheet. Li Wei smiled. My mother used to say that beauty was how you knew you were alive. When you stopped noticing it, you stopped living. Your mother was wise. She was everything. Li Wei's throat tightened with grief that still felt fresh. I keep forgetting she's gone. I'll think of something I want to tell her, and then reality hits. She's not there anymore. She'll never be there again. Without warning, Hyun-woo pulled her into a hug. It was awkward at first, both of them stiff, but then Li Wei melted into it, accepting the comfort she hadn't known she needed. He smelled like expensive cologne and coffee, and his arms were solid and reassuring around her. I'm sorry, he murmured into her hair. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you had to come here alone. I'm sorry this family is so terrible at showing love. Li Wei pulled back, wiping her eyes. Why are you always apologizing for them? You're not responsible for grandfather's cruelty or Uncle Min-jae's contempt. No, but I'm complicit. I enable it by playing my role in their empire. That makes me guilty too. Or it makes you trapped. There's a difference. His eyes met hers, and something shifted in his expression. Warmth maybe. Or recognition of a fellow prisoner. How did you get so wise? Poverty forces wisdom. When you can't afford mistakes, you learn fast. I wish I'd had that education. Maybe I wouldn't be such a coward now. You're not a coward. You're surviving in an impossible situation. That takes its own kind of courage. They were still close enough that Li Wei could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried that no one else seemed to notice. Close enough that when his gaze dropped to her lips, her breath caught. This was dangerous territory. He was technically her cousin, though they'd only just met. He was part of the family that had destroyed her parents' happiness. He represented everything she'd come here to prove she didn't need. But he was also kind and lonely and real in a way no one else in this house seemed to be. And when he leaned in slightly, a question in his eyes, Li Wei didn't pull away. The kiss was gentle, almost hesitant. A brief touch of lips that felt like both a question and an answer. When they parted, Hyun-woo looked as surprised as Li Wei felt. I'm sorry, he said immediately. That was inappropriate. Your family and I took advantage. We're barely family, Li Wei interrupted. Technically cousins, but we didn't grow up together. We're strangers who happen to share DNA. That's not how grandfather will see it. Then grandfather doesn't need to know. Li Wei stood abruptly, her heart racing. This was a mistake. A moment of weakness. Let's forget it happened. Can you forget it? The honest answer was no. The feeling of his lips on hers, the warmth of his arms, the sense of being understood, it was all seared into her memory. But admitting that would complicate everything. We have to, she said firmly. Your sister warned me about your savior complex. I won't be another project you rescue then discard. That's not what this is. Isn't it? Be honest, Hyun-woo. Would you have even noticed me if I wasn't the tragic orphan invading your family? If I was just another executive assistant or socialite at one of these gatherings? He had no answer, and his silence was answer enough. Exactly, Li Wei said, ignoring the ache in her chest. Good night, Hyun-woo. Thank you for your kindness. But let's keep things professional from now on. She left him in the conservatory, walking quickly through the darkened halls back to the blue room. Only when she was safely behind her locked door did she let herself feel the full weight of what had happened. She'd kissed Kang Hyun-woo. More accurately, he'd kissed her and she'd kissed him back. It was impulsive and foolish and against every rule of common sense. He was her cousin. He was part of the family that had rejected her parents. He was emotionally unavailable and trapped in golden chains of obligation. And yet, for those brief seconds, she'd felt more seen than she had in months, maybe years. Stupid, Li Wei whispered to her reflection. So incredibly stupid. But even as she berated herself, her fingers touched her lips, remembering. The next weeks established a careful routine. Li Wei threw herself into learning everything about being a Kang. The etiquette lessons, language tutorials, business fundamentals, they all became part of her daily life. She was transforming whether she wanted to admit it or not. And Hyun-woo maintained a polite, professional distance that hurt more than Li Wei wanted to acknowledge. Their business lessons continued, but they sat across the table from each other instead of side by side. Their conversations stayed strictly on topic. When they passed in the hallways, Hyun-woo would nod politely and continue on his way. It was exactly what Li Wei had asked for. She hated it. You're moping, Soo-jin said one afternoon, appearing in the library where Li Wei was studying financial statements. Pining, actually. Very dramatic. I'm not pining. I'm concentrating. You're staring at the same page you were staring at 20 minutes ago. That's pining, not studying. Soo-jin flopped into a nearby chair with casual elegance. Let me guess. My brother did something stupid. And now you're both pretending it didn't happen. How did you, please, live here? I notice things. Hyun-woo's been walking around like someone kicked his puppy. You flinch every time he enters a room. It doesn't take a genius to put the pieces together. Soo-jin studied her nails. He kissed you, didn't he? Li Wei's silence was confirmation enough. Idiot, Soo-jin muttered, though whether she meant her brother or Li Wei wasn't clear. Look, I'm going to give you some advice, and you can take it or leave it. My brother is genuinely one of the good ones. He's kind and patient and loyal to a fault. But he's also been trained since birth to suppress anything resembling genuine emotion. Grandfather considers feelings a weakness. That's horrible. That's being a Kang. We're raised to be perfect, and perfection doesn't include messy human things like love or vulnerability. Soo-jin leaned forward. But I've seen the way he looks at you. Like you're sunlight and he's been living in darkness. If you care about him at all, don't give up just because it's complicated. We're cousins. Barely. Your fathers were brothers, but you didn't grow up together. Legally and ethically, there's no issue. The only problem is grandfather's opinion. And honestly, when has his opinion ever led anyone to happiness? He'll destroy us both if he finds out. Probably. But you'll be destroyed separately and miserable, or destroyed together, and at least you'll have had something real. Ujin stood. I'm not saying throw caution to the wind and declare your love at the next board meeting. I'm saying don't let fear make all your decisions. That's what everyone else in this family does. And look how unhappy we all are. She left, and Li Wei sat with the financial statements and the uncomfortable truth that Sujin was right. She'd run from Hyun-woo not because she didn't want him, but because she did. And wanting things in this family seemed dangerous. But maybe, just maybe, it was worth the danger. That evening, Li Wei found herself outside Hyun-woo's study. She'd walked these halls for 20 minutes, working up the courage to knock. When she finally did, his voice called out, "Come in." He looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face before he controlled it. "Li Wei, is something wrong?" "Yes, well, maybe." She closed the door behind her. "We need to talk." "About?" "You know about what?" "A kiss." "The weirdness. The fact that we're both pretending it didn't happen when we both know it did." Hyun-woo set down his pen carefully. "I apologized. I thought we agreed to forget it. I tried to forget it. I can't." Li Wei moved closer to his desk, her courage building. "Can you?" His silence was answer enough. "I've been thinking," Li Wei continued. "This family stole my parents' happiness. They forced them apart, rejected them, made them suffer for loving each other. And I came here willing to let them do the same to me. To police my feelings and hide anything genuine because it might complicate the Kang Empire." "Li Wei, let me finish. My mother spent her whole life being careful, being appropriate, following rules that only ever hurt her. And in the end, she died alone in a hospital room, having sacrificed everything for everyone else's comfort. I don't want to be her. I love her, I honor her, but I don't want her life. What do you want?" Li Wei took a deep breath. "I want to be honest. I want to feel things without apologizing. I want to find out what might happen between us if we weren't so busy protecting ourselves from hypothetical consequences." Hyun-woo stood slowly, moving around the desk until only a few feet separated them. "Do you understand what you're saying? What you're risking? Grandfather will go nuclear if he finds out. Uncle Min-jae will use it as ammunition to discredit you. The whole family will see it as scandal and shame. Let them. I'm already a scandal by existing. At least this way, I'll be a scandal I chose." "I can't offer you much," Hyun-woo said quietly. "I'm trapped here as much as you are. More maybe. I have responsibilities and expectations and a future that's already been mapped out for me. I can't promise you freedom or escape or happily ever after. I'm not asking for promises. I'm asking for honesty. For real moments in this house of pretending. For someone who sees me, not Kang Li Wei the heiress, but just Wei. The girl who still can't believe she sleeps in a room bigger than her whole apartment. The girl who misses her mother every second. The girl who's terrified she'll forget how to be herself in this place." Something in Hyun-woo's expression shifted, softened. "I see you, Wei. I've seen you from the first moment you walked into that blue salon and insulted grandfather to his face. You're the bravest person I've ever met." "I'm not brave. I'm terrified." Bravery and terror aren't mutually exclusive. Bravery is being terrified and doing it anyway. He reached out, gently taking her hand. "Are you sure about this? Once we cross this line, there's no going back. Everything changes. Everything already changed. My mother died. Came here. Met you. We can't unchanged any of that." Li Wei squeezed his hand. "So let's change forward. Together." This kiss was different from the first. It wasn't hesitant or uncertain. It was a declaration, a choice, a leap into unknown waters. Hyun-woo pulled her close, and Li Wei melted into him, feeling safe and terrified and alive all at once. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Hyun-woo rested his forehead against hers. We'll have to be careful. Discreet. Grandfather can't know. We'll be the world's best secret keepers. No stolen moments in the conservatory. No longing glances at dinner. We have to be completely normal. Define normal for this family. His laugh was warm against her skin. Fair point. K will be our version of normal. Professional. Courteous. Utterly boring. And when we're alone. When we're alone we get to be real. He kissed her again, softer this time. Thank you for being brave enough for both of us. Thank you for seeing me. They stood there in his study, holding each other, knowing that they just made everything infinitely more complicated. But for the first time since entering Kong Manor, Li Wei felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. 6 months passed in a blur of secret meetings and careful pretense. Li Wei thrived in her new life, mastering the skills she needed while maintaining her relationship with Hyun-woo in the shadows. They were careful, so careful, meeting only in private spaces, communicating in coded looks across crowded rooms. To the rest of the family, they were cordial cousins who got along well enough. No one suspected the depth of their connection. Jin-ho, impressed by Li Wei's progress, began giving her real responsibilities. She was put in charge of a new art museum project, a massive undertaking that would showcase contemporary Korean artists. It was perfect for her background, and she threw herself into the work with passion. Hyun-woo supported her behind the scenes, running interference with difficult board members, smoothing over budget concerns, always there but never obviously so. Their late-night working sessions became the highlight of Li Wei's weeks. They'd spread architectural plans across the piano in the conservatory, debate artistic choices, argue over logistics. And then, when work was done, they'd set everything aside and just be together. Tell me something true, Hyun-woo said one night, lying on the floor of the conservatory, staring up at the glass ceiling. Something no one else knows. Li Wei lay beside him, their shoulders touching. I'm terrified I'm becoming one of them. That I'll wake up one day and care more about stock prices than people. That I'll forget why I came here. You won't. You're too aware of the dangers for that. Am I? You were aware too once. Look at you now. Ouch. Fair point. He was quiet for a moment. I'm scared too if it helps. Scared that I've dragged you into my misery. That loving you is selfish because I can't offer you real freedom. Li Wei rolled onto her side to look at him. Did you just say loving me? Hyun-woo's expression was vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I did. Is that okay? It's terrifying and wonderful and probably a disaster waiting to happen. She kissed him softly. I love you too. Which is possibly the stupidest thing I've ever done. Definitely the stupidest. And I don't care. Let the universe implode. I love you, Kang Hyun-woo, and I'm done apologizing for it. His smile was brilliant. No more apologizing. We're doing this. Whatever this is, we're committing to it fully. What if we get caught? Then we get caught. But at least we'll have had something real in this house of illusions. The museum project consumed Li Wei's life for the next 3 months. The opening gala was a spectacular success, attended by Korea's cultural elite and covered by every major media outlet. Li Wei, in a stunning black gown, moved through the crowd accepting congratulations, feeling proud of what she'd accomplished. And through it all, Hyun-woo was there, watching her with pride and love barely concealed in his expression. The next day, Jin-ho called Li Wei into his office. You've done well, he said without preamble. The museum has generated significant positive publicity. The board is impressed. I'm impressed. Thank you, grandfather. I'm promoting you to Vice President of Cultural Development. You'll have a seat on the board. You've earned it. It was everything she'd worked for. Real power. Meaningful authority. the chance to create lasting change. Thank you, grandfather. I won't disappoint you. See that you don't. And Li Wei, one more thing. I know about you and Hyun-woo. Her blood turned to ice. I don't know what you mean. Don't insult my intelligence. I've known for months. Did you think I don't monitor everything that happens in this house? I have security footage of your late-night meetings. Reports from staff who saw you together. I know exactly what was happening. Li Wei's mind raced, calculating damage control. It wasn't. I don't care what it was. You chose power over sentimentality. That's when I knew you were truly my granddaughter. Jin-ho's smile was cold. The question is whether you'll continue to choose wisely. What are you saying? I'm saying your relationship with Hyun-woo is over. As of today. If you want to keep your position on the board, if you want to continue building your career, you'll end it cleanly. No drama. No scenes. Just a quiet separation of two people who realized they wanted different things. And if I refuse, then you're removed from the board. Your projects are reassigned. And Hyun-woo faces consequences as well. I'll transfer him to our Singapore office, effective immediately. You'll never see him again. Li Wei's world tilted. You can't do that. I can and I will. You have a choice to make. Your career and everything you've built, or a relationship that was never going to work anyway. Choose wisely, Li Wei. Choose like a Kang. He dismissed her with a wave, and Li Wei left his office feeling hollowed out. Jin-ho had known all along. He'd watched them, manipulated them, let them believe they were getting away with something when really he'd been controlling everything. That night, Li Wei met Hyun-woo on the roof, their special place. She told him everything Jin-ho had said, and watched his expression harden. He's bluffing, Hyun-woo said. No, he's not. You know he's not. Li Wei's voice cracked. He'll send you away. He'll destroy everything we've built. And Hyun-woo, I've worked so hard for this. The museum, the programs, the opportunity to create real change. How can I walk away from that? Are you asking my permission to choose your career over us? His voice was carefully neutral. No. I don't know. Tears streamed down her face. I love you. But I also love the work. I love what I'm building. Is it wrong to want both? It's not wrong. But it is impossible, apparently. Hyun-woo's smile was sad. Choose your career, Wei. It's what you came here for. It's what your mother would want. Real impact, real change. That matters more than us. Don't say that. It's true though, isn't it? We're not children believing in fairy tales. We're adults who understand that sometimes love isn't enough. Your parents chose love and it destroyed them. Maybe we're smart enough to choose differently. Li Wei wanted to argue, to insist they could find another way. But looking into Hyun-woo's eyes, she saw resignation. He'd already accepted the ending, was already letting her go. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Don't be sorry. Be extraordinary. Build your museums. Create your programs. Change this family from the inside. That's worth more than any relationship could ever be worth. He kissed her forehead gently. I'll always love you, Wei. But I love you enough to let you fly, even if it means flying without me. They stood there on the roof one last time, holding each other as the city lights flickered below, two people who'd found love in an impossible place and were letting it go for impossible reasons. The next morning, Li Wei attended her first board meeting as vice president. She sat in her new seat, accepted congratulations from other board members, and watched Hyun-woo across the table. His expression perfectly professional. They had agreed to maintain cordial working relationships. To everyone else, nothing had changed. Only they knew what had been lost. 2 years passed. Li Wei rose through the family business, becoming one of the most influential voices in Korean cultural development. She opened 3 more museums. She established scholarship programs. She created opportunities for hundreds of artists who would never have been seen otherwise. The media called her the cultural dragon, a play on Jin Ho's Iron Dragon moniker. She appeared on magazine covers, gave international talks, became a recognizable public figure who represented a gentler face of the Kang Empire. And she was desperately lonely. She dated occasionally, polished executives and artists who pursued her for her name or influence. None of them saw her. None of them understood the girl from Myeongdong who still couldn't believe she lived in a mansion. None of them were Hyun-woo. She followed his career from a distance. He'd left Kang Industries just as he'd always talked about, and started his own educational technology company. It was successful by normal standards, though nothing compared to the Kang Empire. He looked happy in the rare photos she found online. Lighter. Free of the weight he'd carried. She should have been happy for him. Instead, she felt the loss like a constant ache. The annual Kang Family Gala, a massive charity event, was Li Wei's responsibility to organize. The night of the gala, Li Wei wore a custom gown and stood in the reception line, greeting dignitaries and donors, playing the role of gracious Kang heiress perfectly. Then she saw him. Hyun-woo stood at the entrance, wearing a sharp suit that reminded her of the man she'd fallen in love with. But his expression was different, more peaceful, more himself. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom, and Li Wei forgot how to breathe. He moved through the crowd toward her, and every instinct told her to run. This was dangerous. This would shatter the careful control she'd built around her heart. "Hello, Wei," he said when he reached her. His voice was the same, warm and genuine. "Hyun-woo, I didn't know you were coming. Grandfather invited me. First time in 2 years. I think it's his way of saying I'm not completely dead to him anymore." His smile was wry. "Or he wanted to parade my modest success in front of everyone. You're not a failure. Your company is incredibly successful. Successful by normal standards. Not by Kang standards. But I've made peace with that." They stood in awkward silence while the gala swirled around them. Finally, Hyun-woo said, "You look beautiful. You always did, but now you wear it differently. More confident." "Thank you. You look good too." "Happy." "I am happy. Mostly. There are some things that still ache, but I'm learning to live with the ache." Li Wei understood what he meant. Some aches never fully healed. You just got better at carrying them. "Can we talk?" Hyun-woo asked. "Somewhere private. Just for a few minutes." She should say no. Should maintain professional distance. Should protect herself. "The conservatory," she heard herself say. 20 minutes. "I need to finish greeting guests." His smile was worth the risk. 20 minutes later, Li Wei slipped away from the gala and made her way to the conservatory. The room was dark, lit only by moonlight through the glass ceiling. The piano sat in shadows, untouched since the last time she and Hyun-woo had played together. He was waiting by the piano, and when she entered, he turned with an expression that made her heart stop. "Thank you for coming," he said. "We shouldn't be here. People will notice. Let them notice. I'm done hiding." He moved closer. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. Hyun-woo, I love you. I have loved you since the first moment you insulted grandfather and didn't back down. I loved you when you chose to stay here instead of coming with me. I've loved you through 2 years of separation and all the aching in between. That hasn't changed. It won't change." Tears burned Li Wei's eyes. "Don't do this. I can't. I made my choice. And it was the right choice for you at that time. Understand that now. You needed to prove something to yourself. To prove you could be powerful and good. To show that your parents' story didn't have to be your story. Then why are you here? Why are you saying this? Because I need to know if you're done proving it. If you've learned what you needed to learn. If there's any chance you might choose differently now. Li Wei looked at him. This man she'd loved and lost and never stopped missing. The truth was complicated and painful and liberating all at once. I have more work to do here, she said quietly. More things I want to accomplish. But Hyun-woo, I'm not happy. I'm successful and influential and respected. But I'm not happy. Then walk away. Like I did. Choose happiness. It's not that simple. I've built something here. Programs that help real people. Opportunities that wouldn't exist without me. How do I abandon that? You don't have to abandon it. We could find a middle way. Maybe you work with a family during the day and come home to me at night. Maybe we build a life that includes both your mission and our love. Maybe there's a version of this story where you don't have to choose. Li Wei wanted to believe him. But she'd seen what happened to her parents when they tried to have both. The family had crushed them, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared that if I let myself love you again, grandfather will find a way to destroy it. To destroy us. He already knew about us before. He let it play out because he knew you'd leave and I'd stay. What's to stop him from manipulating us again? Nothing. Except our awareness that he'll try. Hyun-woo took her hands. Wei, I'm not asking you to be naive. I'm asking you to be brave. One more time. For us. And if it doesn't work, if we try and fail, then at least we'll have tried. At least we won't spend the rest of our lives wondering what if. He pulled her close. I don't need you to decide right now. I don't need promises or commitments. I just need you to consider the possibility that there's another way forward. A way that doesn't require you to sacrifice everything for duty. Li Wei rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. This moment felt stolen from time, a brief respite in a life of constant performance and pressure. I've missed you so much, she whispered. Every day, every night, every success feels hollow without you to share it with. Then let me share it. Let me back in, even just a little. It's not fair to you. To keep you waiting while I figure out if I can actually do this. Love isn't about fairness. It's about choosing each other repeatedly, even when it's hard. He kissed the top of her head. I'll wait as long as you need. And if you ultimately decide you can't do this, I'll accept that too. But at least let me be your friend. Let me be in your life in whatever way you can manage. Friends. Seemed impossible to be just friends with someone you loved this deeply. But maybe it was a start. Maybe they could rebuild from friendship toward something more, something sustainable. Okay, Li Wei said. Friends. We can try that. Friends who occasionally meet in secret conservatories. Friends who are honest about still loving each other but trying to figure out how to make it work in reality, not just fantasy. I'll take it. Hyun-woo smiled. Now we should probably get back before someone notices we're both missing. They separated reluctantly, returning to the gala through different entrances. Li Wei slipped back into her role as gracious hostess, but something had shifted inside her. A door she'd locked tight was open just a crack, letting in dangerous hope. Over the following months, Li Wei and Hyun-woo rebuilt their relationship carefully. They met for coffee, always in public places where nothing looked suspicious. They texted daily, sharing small moments and larger struggles. They attended the same social events, maintaining appropriate distance while being hyper-aware of each other's presence. To the outside world, they were cordial family members who'd reconciled after Hyun-woo's departure. To each other, they were two people falling in love all over again, this time with eyes wide open to the obstacles. Jin-ho watched it all with calculating eyes. At their monthly review meeting, 6 months after the gala, he finally addressed it directly. You're spending time with Hyun-woo again, he said. We're family. It's appropriate to maintain relationships. Don't play games with me, Li Wei. I know the difference between family courtesy and rekindled romance. Then you know I'm being careful, discreet. Nothing that would embarrass the family. Yet, Jin-ho leaned back in his chair. You've done well these past 2 years. Built something meaningful. Brought genuine prestige to the Kang name. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. The compliment was so unexpected that Li Wei was immediately suspicious. Thank you, grandfather. But I didn't build this empire by being sentimental. And I won't watch you throw away your potential the way your father did. His eyes were hard. You have a choice to make. Continue your trajectory here with all the power and influence that entails. Or throw it away for love and end up exactly like your parents. Poor, struggling, dying young. That's not fair. They loved each other. And what did that love get them? Your father dead at 32. Your mother dead at 50, exhausted and broken. Is that what you want? To waste your potential on romance? My potential doesn't have to exclude love. In this family it does. You can have power or you can have love. Not both. I've seen too many people try and fail. Your father. Even my own marriage was strategic, not romantic. Jin-ho's voice was almost gentle. I'm not trying to be cruel, Li Wei. I'm trying to save you from heartbreak. By guaranteeing it. By making me choose between happiness and success. By helping you understand that real success requires sacrifice. You want to change the world. You want to help people. That takes power, and power requires total commitment. Li Wei stood abruptly. I refuse to believe that's true. I refuse to accept that I have to be miserable to be meaningful. Then you're more naive than I thought. Prove me wrong if you can. But don't say I didn't warn you. That night, Li Wei met Hyun-woo at a quiet restaurant. She told him everything grandfather had said. He's trying to manipulate you, Hyun-woo said. Making you believe you have to choose when you don't. But do I? Can I really have both? Every time I try to imagine our future together, I hit walls. How do we make this work when my life is consumed by family obligations and yours is deliberately separate from all that? We figure it out. Together. That's what couples do. But we're not just any couple. We're Kangs. There are expectations, complications, political implications to every choice we make. Only if you let there be. Wei, at some point you have to decide what matters most. And I know that sounds like I'm making you choose between me and your work. I'm not. I'm asking you to choose yourself. What do you want? Not what grandfather wants. Not what your mother would have wanted. What does Li Wei actually want? It was the question she'd been avoiding. Because the answer was complicated and frightening and required her to admit things she'd been denying. I want both, she said finally. I want you and I want the work. I want love and I want impact. I want to help people and I want to be happy. Why is that too much to ask? It's not. But you're asking permission from people who will never grant it. Grandfather will never give you his blessing. The family will never fully accept our relationship. You're waiting for approval that will never come. Then what do? You stop waiting for permission. You make the choice and deal with the consequences. You decide that your happiness matters as much as your duty. Hyun-woo reached across the table, taking her hand. I'm not giving you an ultimatum. I'm just pointing out that you're trapped in a cage you could unlock yourself if you were willing to face what comes after. He was right. Li Wei had been waiting for the perfect solution, the magical answer that would let her have everything without conflict. But life didn't work that way. Every choice had costs. Every path required sacrifice. The question was which sacrifices she could live with. I need time, she said. To think. To really consider what I'm willing to give up and what I absolutely need to keep. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. But Hyun-woo, I'm a mess. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I'm the girl who came here to honor her mother or the woman who's become intoxicated by power. How can you love me when I don't even understand myself? Because I see all of you. The girl and the woman. The idealist and the pragmatist. The scared orphan and the confident executive. You're not one thing or the other. You're all of it, and that's what makes you extraordinary. Tears slipped down Li Wei's cheeks. I don't feel extraordinary. I feel lost. Then let me help you find your way. Not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who's willing to be lost with you until we both figure it out. It was the most honest offer anyone had ever made her. No promises of fixing everything. No guarantees of happily ever after. Just companionship in the confusion, partnership in the struggle. Okay, Li Wei said. Let's be lost together. Let's figure this out. But Hyun-woo, I need you to understand that I might not choose what you want me to choose. I might decide that the work matters more. And if I do, I need you to respect that, even if it hurts. I will. And I need you to understand that I might not wait forever. Not because I don't love you, but because staying in limbo is its own kind of death. At some point, we both need to move forward, together or separately. That's fair. They sat in silence, hands linked across the table. Two people trying to navigate impossible choices with imperfect information. 3 months later, Li Wei had an epiphany. She was sitting in a board meeting, listening to Jin-ho dominate the conversation, when she realized something fundamental. She'd been playing by their rules, waiting for their approval, measuring her worth by their standards. But she had power now. Real power. A reputation independent of the Kang name. Resources she'd built through her own work. If she wanted to have both love and career, she didn't need to ask permission. She needed to demand it. At the next family dinner, Li Wei waited until dessert was served. Then she stood, commanding attention. I have an announcement, she said. Jin-ho's eyes narrowed. Sit down, Li Wei. No. She kept her voice calm but firm. I've spent 2 years playing by your rules, grandfather. Building programs, generating publicity, proving my worth. I've done everything you asked and more. Now I have some conditions of my own. You don't make conditions in this family. I do now. Because here's the truth. My work has made this family look good. My museums, my programs, my public appearances, they've softened the Kang reputation. Made us seem like more than just ruthless capitalists. I've brought value, and I can take that value elsewhere if I choose. Min-jae laughed. You think you can threaten us? You're nothing without the Kang name. Am I? I have relationships with every major cultural institution in Korea. I have funding sources independent of family money. I have a reputation that opens doors. The Kang name helped me get started, but I've built something beyond it. Li Wei looked directly at Jin-ho. So here's my condition. I continue my work with full support and resources. And I conduct my personal life however I choose, without interference or judgment. That includes my relationship with Hyun-woo. You're issuing ultimatums. Jin-ho's voice was dangerous. I'm establishing boundaries. You can accept them and continue to benefit from my work. Or you can reject them and I'll take my talents elsewhere. There are plenty of organizations that would love to have me. It was a massive gamble. Li Wei was essentially threatening to walk away from everything she'd built, betting that Jin-ho would back down rather than lose her. For a long moment, silence filled the dining room. Then Jin-ho smiled, and it was a genuine smile, not his usual cold expression. Well played, Li Wei. You finally learned how to be a Kang. Not by following orders, but by knowing your own worth and refusing to be manipulated. So you agree. I agree that you've earned the right to make your own choices. Your relationship with Hyun-woo is your business. If you can manage both your professional and personal lives without one destroying the other, more power to you. He raised his glass. To my granddaughter, who's finally grown into her power. Li Wei sat down, shaking with adrenaline. She'd done it. She'd stood up to the Iron Dragon and won. Later that night she called Hyun-woo. I did something either really brave or really stupid. Tell me. She explained what had happened at dinner, and Hyun-woo's laugh was warm and proud. That's incredible. You're incredible. So what does this mean for us? It means we can try. Really try. Not in secret, not hiding, but openly. If you still want to. If I still want to. Wei, I've been waiting 2 years for this. Of course I want to. It won't be easy. The family will still judge us. People will talk. And we'll have to figure out how to balance my crazy schedule with your company, and we'll figure it out. Together. That's what we do. His voice was full of emotion. I love you, Wei. And I'm not letting you go again. I love you too. And I'm done choosing between love and work. I'm choosing both. I'm choosing me. That's all I've ever wanted. For you to choose yourself. They talked for hours, making plans, dreaming about their future, finally allowing themselves to hope. It wouldn't be perfect. There would still be challenges, complications, moments when the family made things difficult. But they would face it together as partners, as equals. Li Wei had learned the most important lesson. You didn't have to choose between love and power. You just had to be brave enough to demand both. And strong enough to build a life that honored all parts of yourself. Her parents had chosen love and lost everything. Jin Ho had chosen power and lost his humanity. Li Wei was choosing to forge a different path entirely. One that proved you could be successful and happy, powerful and loving, a Kang in yourself simultaneously. It wouldn't be easy. But the best things never were. And as she finally fell asleep that night, Li Wei dreamed of her mother, who smiled and nodded approval, proud of the woman her daughter had become. Not because she'd found wealth or power or even love, but because she'd found herself. And that was the greatest success of all.